Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. The fall of 1968, America was in social upheaval. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy were both dead at the hands of assassins. The Vietnam War made headlines daily. And James Brown's "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud" was the anthem for a restless Black America. But it was also a time when a group of freshmen entered Howard University and formed a bond, a brotherhood that foreshadowed greatness and still sets examples for us even today. Well, one of those brothers is Jeff Burns. He is the author of the book, The Brotherhood of Drew Hall. Another is Walter Oliver Jr., a Howard University engineering professor and contributor to the book. The lines are Walter, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
First question. Almost 50 years in the making. You guys came to Howard University, 1968, crazy time in American history, Black history. You guys were eager to take on the world, or at least begin to, but you formed a friendship. Give me a thumbnail sketch of how this came together, Jeff.
Well, it was a common bond. We were all trying to move forward, achieve a college education at Howard. We specifically chose a Black university. We became friends. That bond of friendship began day one at Drew Hall when I met Walter and I said, "Hi, I'm Jeff Burns." He said, "Hey, I'm Walter Howard. I'm going to be an engineer." And I said, "Wow." But all of these guys, one said he was going to be a doctor, Arnold Washington. He is a doctor. He's actually the dean of the UCLA Medical School. He runs 4 hospitals. Another guy said, "Well, I'm going to be a pilot." He's the #1 pilot in the world. His name's Anthony Holder, Captain Anthony Holder. The chief designer for General Motors is Ed Welburn. Ed had sketches of cars, futuristic cars, on his wall that no one had ever seen. Ed is VP. He's the most powerful Black person. He's the 3rd most powerful person in Detroit. So,
General Motors.
Yeah, General Motors.
I've spoken to him. Go ahead.
Right. So, all of the things that they said they were going to become, they became, and most of the people came and were born in the South. And, even though I was born in South Carolina, people were saying, well, people from the South don't have good education, da-da-da-da. But all of these brothers came from the South. They overachieved. One is the chairman right now of the architecture department down in North Carolina A&T, and his name is Ronnie Bailey. But not only is he a successful educationally himself, he is a father role model. His daughter is a PhD in chemical engineering. So most of these men are also husbands, fathers, and truly role models for young men.
The thing that I find so interesting about this, these weren't just a handful of guys. There were how many? 15 Walters, I thought?
Just about 15.
Yeah, about 14 or 15.
It kept growing.
It kept growing, and again, you said this started as a friendship, but it eventually developed into what you are describing in the book as a brotherhood. But do you believe that this was specifically special to you guys? Or was this part of what was happening at the time, and could it indeed have happened to anyone?
It could have happened to anyone, but it was specific to the times because we had the Vietnam War, we had the assassination of Martin Luther King, we had the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy. Those were trying times for the country. So we were looking for something. We were looking for a leader. We found a leader within ourselves. We found a leader because it was a time where we said, "Hello, brother, hello, sister. We need to do something to contribute to society. We need to make this better."
At that time also, there were fraternities and sororities just like they are today. I'm a Kappa member of a fraternity, and they call them the Divine Nine. We had AKAs go over here on Howard's campus just last week, for example. But why didn't you guys, decide to pledge at least right away? Because I know some of you are members of fraternities, but
some of them did pledge.
Right.
But we have a closer bond than they do with their respective fraternities and or sororities. So, you know, it's just that close bond. Every day, I mean, we were eating together, we were hanging out together, we were hanging out on the wall, you know, hanging out on the wall means down at the quad. You know, we hit lights, jazz. We were going to Georgetown to hear jazz and blues. We went to concerts together. We were always together. But what's really significant here is that each and every single person that's in the Brotherhood of Drew Hall gives back to the African American community and to Howard. I mean, Walter has made a career at Howard as a professor. I give back. I'm vice chair of the School of Communications at Howard. But we all give back in our communities, and we give back to Mother Howard. And that is true for every single person that's in the hall.
And when speaking about giving back to the broader community, and here's the critical question, because it kind of goes back to what I was saying before, could this have happened, you know, to anyone? Was it something that happened within the bond, in this brotherhood, that now in 2014 has you still giving back to the community? Or really was that something that perhaps had been instilled in you by your parents? Or perhaps something that may have come to you after you left Howard? Or can you specifically pinpoint something that happened because of this unit that said, when I leave Howard University, I will forever contribute to the community? And the reason that is important is because not everybody has gone to college, and not everyone has had the privilege of going to a Howard University, an HBCU, and I can go on, and yet there are millions of people, and certainly many in the black community, that are giving back.
Well, I had a role model in my home. My father was a member of the 761st Tank Battalion, which is known as the Black Panthers. The unit, they actually they received the presidential citation from President Carter.
And they were under George Patton.
They were correct. They were under George
Trained
Patton.
at Fort Knox.
Trained at Fort Knox. You know, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there have been about 5 or 6 documentaries on them, 5 or 6 books about the unit. So, growing up, he was always telling me about this unit that he belonged to, Black Panthers, and you know, and they were the original Black Panthers. So, when I got to Drew Hall, I started meeting these guys who had like ideas, as Walter already said. We grew up knowing that. We heard about 4 little girls being bombed in Birmingham, losing their lives. They're the same age as we were.
We're going to talk more about this and how the bonds of brotherhood and indeed sisterhood can really affect your life many, many years down the road. 6, that music right there, the beginning of my end, classic soul. We played it here on WHUR on the Quiet Storm, but it is particularly important to this brotherhood that you write about. Why so?
Well, Al Johnson was one of the contributors to the book. He was an original member of the Unifics, and we actually dedicated this segment to him. These guys actually practiced in Drew Hall. So we're living in Drew Hall, and these guys are practicing, and their songs, of course, started playing on WHUR when WHUR was launched. So it was a fascinating time. We also had members of Donald Byrd and the Blackbirds who lived in Drew Hall, and Richard Smallwood and the Howard Gospel Choir. So it was just a phenomenal time, a phenomenal place culturally and everything. But the Unifics, we lost a really great person to
last year.
R&B.
Yeah.
Classic R&B. Unifics are the best of the best.
For those these days who talk about, let's just talk about brotherhood, and for the sisters out there, we're not negating sisterhood, but in this particular case, we don't often see friendships, celebrated black male friendships these days. Unfortunately, we're more likely to hear about gangs than we are about young black men and how they positively influenced each other. Was this by design, Walter? Obviously, you met him and you shook hands, but then, after that, most young people these days may keep on about their business.
I'm not so sure if it was by design, but it was by circumstance. Here we are, young brothers from all parts of the country, and we were in D.C., and to get to Howard at that time, we had to pass through all of the places that had just been burnt down. So in our hearts, we kind of knew that we had to bond together. It would be nothing for us to pull money together to go to, say, the old thrifties or the old some sandwich place to get food. It would be nothing for us to share our thoughts on what it took to pass a course, philosophize. What is this new thing called a sexual revolution? Things like that.
God, you guys sounded so boring. You know? I mean, my goodness, so intense. Please tell me there was a joke or two somewhere in all of that.
Of course, there were a lot. I mean, we partied like everyone, like everyone else. I mean, we were hanging around the quad, women around the quad, going to all the parties and stuff. But, what's really interesting is that this brotherhood, we have been there for each other through all significant rites and passage of life, lives and deaths, marriages, births, etc. And then continues.
We're going to continue this conversation on the other side. If you're on the phone, the Daily Drum will continue, so please hang on. We'll be back on Sirius. Discussing how strong early bonds of brotherhood can impact your life even today. My guests are Jeff Burns, author of The Brotherhood of Drew Hall, and Walter Oliver Jr., Howard University engineering professor and contributor to the book. Lines are open at 202-319-7810. That's 202-319-7810. Outside of the D.C. calling area, 855-288-4876, 855-288-4876. Harmon, calling from Columbia. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind? Talk to me, Harmon, don't go anywhere if you don't mind. The both of you, please talk to me about this microwave society, because both of you are in academics. You've done other things, obviously, so you've had an opportunity to observe young people or younger people, for example, as time has moved on. How have things changed as it relates to friendships, brotherhood, sisterhoods? Your thoughts, Walter?
One thing about our time was that socially it was very easy for humans to socialize together. We had one central color TV in the dormitory, which was a meeting place. We had downstairs in the game room, ping pong games, we had pool table games, we had fierce bid whist games. There was a lot of social interaction.
But how would you compare that to now? I mean, certainly some would say, friendships, no matter how time goes along, friendships, bonds, brotherhoods, sisterhoods, they don't change. I mean, certainly I have friends that I've been close to literally since junior high school. We are still friends to this day. Both of you guys started before I did, and so I would think that even generationally speaking, friendships are still the same. Or are they?
Oh, I think the difference here is that in the genesis of this relationship, it was formed at Drew Hall and Howard University. We have continuously discussed every political election. We discussed shifts and changes in politics and economic development within the Black community. And as I mentioned, we give back. Me personally, one of the things that I started my own scholarship program, basic requirement was that you had to be active in terms of giving back to your community, have at least a B average, and attend an HBCU. The first couple of people who won the scholarship went to Howard University. Not just because they were, it was my alma mater, but they were qualified, capable, and able. They were very active in their community, and I'm still in contact with them today. As a matter of fact, one of them sits on a board, a community board.
And I think, Harmon, when you talk about this microwave society, is it possible that modern friendships, relationships are just measured by a different kind of measuring stick? Interesting.
In terms of economic development, I might also add several of the people in the book are on Black Enterprise Top 100 every year. Two of them have their own businesses, and which generate in excess of $2 or $3 billion annually, and they all give back to Howard.
Harmon, thank you so much for your input. I appreciate it. He did bring up an interesting point. because as we know, not only in the sense of when you talk about Howard University, I mean even as a kid, thank you, because my dad went. That you heard so much about the greats that attended the university, and it also deals obviously with the argument about the viability of HBCUs. But obviously in 2014, some could argue that the division between HBCUs and the majority colleges is just like America. There's a grand divide. And some people will attend HBCUs because they feel it is important, and others may turn their backs on it. What is it that this brotherhood brought to the fore for you about HBCUs? I mean, obviously, Walter, and both of you, obviously, you're teaching here. You are passing the torch to young people. Well, what do you say to somebody who says, I don't know?
Well, first of all, being a product of an HBCU, as Walter and I are, we have a bond is lifetime. Beyond that, we do give back. We do work with young people, inspire them, give them direction so they can set their course. You mentioned earlier, the images that you see on TV of black men are not positive images. We've tried to change that with the book and talks, and when we go around and speak to different groups of young people, etc. Because there is another way. I mean, all of the guys who, none of the people who were in the book had a lot of money, but they made it, and you mentioned earlier on, I just want to say, there are women in the book. One is married to one of my best friends. He's a judge. They met. She's a part of the book. She contributed to the book. And you also have multi-generations of people in the Brotherhood whose sons or daughters have attended and graduated from Howard as well. So, we still have stayed the course. We have the two ministers there. So if we need, the network is important. If I need help with my computer, who do I call? I call Walter Oliver. He's a computer genius as he sits there. If I need spiritual consultation, I can call Reverend Rodney Graves. I can call Reverend Dr. Martin Bolton. So there are two, or I can call the chairman of the Deacon Board down at Shiloh Baptist Church in North Carolina, Professor Ronnie Bailey. So we still have that bond. I know I can reach out to them, I can talk to them with confidence, and vice versa. And
this isn't a question about how.
They respect mine.
Which you have, obviously spoken.
But this goes up beyond how.
And and that's the point I want to get to. Because again, my question was, what do you say to parents of young people who say, well, shoot, I can send my kid to Maryland instead of Howard, or I can send, my child can go to Princeton, or my child can go to Texas A&M instead of Hampton or Morgan, my alma mater, or to Morehouse. How do you convince them that is the thing to do?
Okay. If I live in the New York City area, the majority of the elected officials in Brooklyn and New York are products of HBCUs. Most of them come from Howard. If you take a look at the mayors who have been in place down in Atlanta, hot Atlanta as they call it, where have they come from? HBCUs. Where have most of them come from? From Howard. When you take a look at the corporate boards and see, well, where are these people coming from? The majority still come from HBCUs, be it Howard, Hampton, Virginia State. I mean, there's a plethora of people coming out of those schools. There's that bond. There's that commitment to succeed.
But I think you're not catching my point. Because you know what they say, never trust anybody over 30. And if you're a young person, you're not going to trust anybody over 30, no matter where they are. And I'm speaking, philosophically. But the bottom line is the world is changing. It is no longer 1968. Okay, and and black people are considerably different now than they were in 1968. And they were different now than they were when I was in college back in the 80s. And so again, I think that in 2014 is what you fellas did really possible? Is it really happening? And if it is possible, what would you tell a young person who will give you the side eye and look at you skeptically and say, I'm out here on my own, doing my own thing, when perhaps some would argue that back in '68 you needed each other more?
Let me try that in a different way.
Go ahead.
If you look at the academics, and I'm coming from being a professor at Howard University, I see excellent students. I see the resources being identical to what you would see at a non-HBCU traditional school. The positive thing that you see at the HBCU is the connection that says, when I do not understand that problem, who's going to help me to get the solution? It's going to be that professor, it's going to be that advisor, it's going to be those fellow students. When I was going to Howard, I participated, and some of the other brothers in this book participated in what we call a co-op education program, where in the engineering disciplines, you spent some years at, say, something like a Grumman Aerospace. At Grumman, I was able to compare what I knew against those majority schools. We were cream of the top. That's still today because the education paradigm has not changed.
Your thoughts?
Oh, I totally agree. My thought is, the textbooks are exactly the same. But if you go to an HBCU, you get a lot more out of life than you do in just the textbook. So HBCUs offer you far more in terms of how to live your life, things that you need to do to save your community and to maintain and to succeed.
When you left Howard and you began to move forward, not only with your education but with your life, what was the time that you believe was most significant after you graduated from Howard, when you look back on this brotherhood, or when you needed to reach out? Was there a point in either of your lives when you really, really needed each other and realized that without this brotherhood, your life would be different after school? Was there an illness? Was there a particular achievement? Was there a time in your life when you just said, "Thank God I have these guys"?
Yes, there's actually been several times. When someone's family illness, family troubles, as our parents gotten older, and family members. We've all been there. We have been there for funerals. We've been there for baptisms. We've been there for when someone was sick or ill. One of the brothers in the book, Larry Body, certainly one of my best friends. We lost him last year, and when he passed, he was getting ready to pass. His wife called my friend Richard Bland and myself, and we were physically there when she realized that he had reached a point where he just could not go on. But she called us, knowing the close bond that we had. His wife said, "I want you there when I make this decision." And so we were there with him in his last moments because she knew that's what he would have wanted. Now, I can't think of any better friendship and bond in life than that, when the wife sees his best friends as being his absolute true.
We're discussing strong early bonds of brotherhood and how they can impact your life even today. My guests are Jeff Burns, author of The Brotherhood of Drew Hall, and Walter Oliver Jr., Howard University engineering professor and contributor to the book. Lines are open at 202-319-7810. Outside of the DC calling area, 855-288-4876. Gents, I kind of look back on the same kind of friendships that I had, not only before I got to college, but also when I was in college. And I think that a lot of what you're saying is very, very true, that you do have very strong bonds, whether it is kind of an impromptu friendship that turns into this really cohesive bond that you guys speak about, or again, those that have joined organizations, whether they become Masons or Eastern Stars or members of fraternities, or sororities. And I think you reminded me, Jeff, when I lost one of my dear frat brothers, Kurt Rawls. He was from Philadelphia, and I thought he was crazy, but the man could sing, and you know, we were very, very close all through college. He died of colorectal cancer. Just about, gosh, it's been 2-3 years ago, and yet, yes, like you said, even when we are busy with our lives and we are, you know, raising children and in the midst of our careers and taking care of parents and doing all of the things that we do, when something happens within that bond, you drop everything and you do come together. And I think this is a universal story. When his you know, wife, you know, said he's not going to last. And so, you know, I think that even beyond the Drew Hall story, I think it's universal in that, you know, friendships are still friendships, and maybe we just see them differently because we are no longer 18 at 19. Walter, your thoughts about that?
I'm going to try to address it this way. I'm looking at my son, who is going to be 22 soon.
Mm-hmm.
And up until 2 years ago, his socialization was into the computers. He's a gamer. He loves games. About a couple of years ago, he was put into a situation where he had to socialize and talk to people. And he's loving it. He's able to...
What was the situation?
His grandmother, my mother-in-law, passed away.
I see.
So he's in New York with my wife, and he's helping her out with the business.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, he's really expanded.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible. The foundation is there.
What do you as a father tell him about friendship? I mean, you know, parents tell their children about the pitfalls and the speed bumps and the black holes of life, because we don't want them to be hurt, and we want them to grow up and we want them to be safe. But did you ever have a conversation with them about, you know, their friendships, their buddies, you know, outside of, you know, the one that you don't like, the one that, you know, stay away from that boy down there. I mean, have you ever had a conversation with him about that?
Not only did I have a conversation with him, I had a conversation with a few friends that he did actually socialize in person with. So we kind of schooled them on what was the correct way to handle yourself. That drugs is not a good thing to go into. That the easy way out is not the way you want to go. And then me and my wife both showed by example.
Mm-hmm.
Here are all our friends. Here's how we go from place to place. Even though we might go 200 miles, 500 miles. And we all have a good time when we connect.
And that's interesting too, Jeff, because, you know, Walter just said something that made me think, you know, parents have a tendency to show, you know, by example how to interact with, you know, with their friends. And you guys, and my mother's going to kill me for saying this, but, you know, she has a group similar to this. She calls it the dubious dozen, because there were never 12. There were always 11 or 13 or 14 or 15 of them. And these were women that were in her sorority. My mother's a Delta, and she, you know, became a Delta back in, you know, 1960. And the same kinds of bonds that you speak about now, these healthy bonds, more than 50 years later, when these sisters get sick, or when they, and not just in bad times, but also in good times, when grandchildren do well. It's not about just the children. Now, my mother's going to grandchildren's graduations and that kind of support. You know, talk to me a little bit about that kind of thing, because again, it had to come from somewhere. I'm sure it wasn't just automatic as soon as you met Walter and the others. I mean, again, it comes from some kind of foundation of giving and caring and empathy.
Well, one of the things, first in terms of meeting Walter and some of the other people, you got a good vibe from them. Mm-hmm. You knew they were progressive brothers. They were going someplace. They wanted to do something in their life that would make a difference and to make their parents proud, as well as their community. You know, we were very much involved in social action at that time. We came in, it was our class shut down now. We continued to be active in social activism. That has never really changed. I don't really see that today. We see a lot of kids who will Twitter and tweet and, you know, use cold media to make contact. But for people to just sit down and have a conversation, it's almost foreign now. But that's something, in those low moments when someone wasn't doing well and looked like they might punch out, they would say, hey man, well, what's wrong? And then we would just come around and say, hey, you can make it. Encourage that person. And even now, we still encourage one another as grown men. You can do it. You can do better. You can succeed. You can climb the higher ground. And so, we're like coaching each other. Everyone needs that coach to get you to the finish line. And not just get you to the line, get you across the line. And that is what's really important. You cannot get that from the computer. You need, social interaction when someone is trying to champion your cause and believe in you, so you can believe in yourself. So I speak to a lot of young people. You can be anybody. What are your goals in life? If you set goals, think about it. In this book, we address that. We address goal setting, and not only just setting the goals, but meeting and exceeding the goals. Don't think small, think big.
Well, I beg to differ with you, and this is why. Twitter notwithstanding, Facebook notwithstanding, I think, and not just on this campus and not just on other campuses, but even young people who did not go to college, I think that years ago we saw huge examples of activism, settle on Sanford, Florida, to protest the Trayvon Martin case. And we saw a lot of black people, younger than you, younger than me, young people who were very, very active, who were taking a stand, that were applying pressure. Hundreds, dare I say, thousands. They came from far and wide, and I think that the social media was just a conduit to get the information out. But I believe that bonds were probably built at that time when we looked at the Gina 6 protest. Right. My goodness, there were tens of thousands of young people there, in addition to people of other ages that were there trying to make their voices heard. And I think let's not sell the young folks short. I think that given the same opportunity in 1968, civil rights, and the protesting the Vietnam War, protesting ROTC, as you did here on this campus. There, I think the times were different, but I think the voices were the same. I think the bonds were made then. I think the bonds can be made now in the same way. It was just like, rock and roll in the 50s, depending on your age, you did or you didn't like it. Soul music, God forbid, oh my goodness, Sam Cooke, oh God, and those hips, good, don't do that now. And then of course, Parliament Funkadelic and rap and hip hop, and now they're teaching classes on rap and hip hop. So I think that social change is social change. The only thing that really changes are the times. Before I wrap up, what do you guys, you want to say something? Go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, you may laugh, but I'm on Facebook.
Oh, I believe it.
The good thing about Facebook, the bonds are there. They're electrical bonds. I'm going to use that word.
Go ahead. And there'll be homework tonight, I'm sure.
I have electrical bonds with a lot of people of different ages, of different persuasions, so you see the connectivity there. Mm-hmm. So all is not lost.
And it's funny because just last week we had a guest on who goes by Dr. Goddess on Twitter, and I said to her, you're on Twitter all the time. She's an expert on Black Twitter, and she said it's not just social media, but she said she does have meetups and she does take the time to engage with people face to face that she interacts with on social media. And so I think, again, the times have changed, but perhaps in some ways we are the same. And so maybe I may have misspoken earlier when I said black people are different. I think maybe the times are just different. But before I wrap up, what do you both want to see come out of this book, Walter?
I'd like to see coming out of this book positive direction for all black folks of all persuasions. I would like to see us getting back into the mentoring game. I think we missed that piece. I think we get back into the mentoring game, which was kind of automatic for us growing up. I mean, we lived among lawyers, doctors, ministers, etc. like that. Because of the economic divide, we lost it. If we can get that back, I think we can do a good thing.
Jeff, real quick, what do you want people to take away from it?
I'm going to sum that up by quoting Earl G. Graves, Black Enterprise.
Mhm.
Brotherhood of Drew Hall profiles professional, enterprising black men. Some are included on the AD Top 100 list. All are exemplars of success worthy of emulation by today's youth.
Well said. Jeff Burns, Walter Oliver Jr., thank you so much. The book is The Brotherhood of Drew Hall. You can get it on Amazon. Google it. I'm sure it's a great read. And certainly, hey, look, come to Howard and talk to these brothers, because I'm sure they'll spend some time talking to you. All you got to do is ask. That is the Daily Drum on Sirius XM Channel 141 for this Monday, April 7th. I'm Harold Fisher. You can reach me at hfisher at whur.com, on Facebook or Twitter at hfisherwhur. Hang with me. Good night.